anyone is going to tell any single person that attraction is not important, they're lying. And I know this new trend that Rabbanim are saying don't talk on the phone between dates. Chachamim are saying it. I know Rabbanim are saying it. Everyone quotes everyone else, and no one really knows where the source comes from. Talk between dates. Don't talk before you go on a date. Where did this come from? You're gonna marry somebody, spend the rest of your life, build generations with that person, and you shouldn't talk to them much? Who came up with that?
The shidduch system has gotten so bad where you have a straight male make a shidduch podcast as my spouse. Literally, that's how bad it's gotten.
And never before in history have we had singles in their 40s who are attractive, accomplished, come from fine families, mainstream, and they've never been married. So something is very wrong here.
I say this all the time. I'm very, very unforgiving with these reference calls. I feel like it's a hot. People don't know how to give reference calls. It's a hotbed for lashon hara.
And also the assumption is that marriage cures all. I don't know where this came from, but it is the belief. Oh, he's not well, she's not well, she has problems. You know what? They'll get married, it's going to go away. Really? Marriage is like a cold, it goes away? No. Whatever you see, you're going to see more of. It's never been this way before.
Sarah and Max, an unlikely pair in this wild podcast, they're the perfect flair. Sarah's charm, so feminine and free, a Cali girl spirit under the podcast tree. Max a strong force with a punch in every word. Together they navigate this dating absurd. Don't forget to hit subscribe, join the crew for more laughs and tales just for you. Now back to the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Good for Shidduchim. I'm your host, Sarah Levine. With me, I have my co-host with me, Max Landisman, and a very special guest. We are very excited, and we just wanted to introduce her. She is a successful matchmaker. She writes a weekly column in the 5 Towns Jewish Times, where people can write in questions, and she gives her honest answer. She produces and hosts the Definitive Rap Show, which is also a podcast as well. So we wanted to welcome Baila Sebrow. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Honestly, this is an honor for us. This is a bucket list guest right here, Baila Sebrow. And I do want to give a shout out to your son, Yaakov, for making this all happen. It just so happened to be that Yaakov and I were staying in the same house for Shabbos, and we connected there. And this kind of rap thing kind of got the ball rolling with this.
Oh, and, I didn't even know that. Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah. It's all thanks to Yaakov. Yeah. It literally... I've met
family affair.
Yeah. So I'm going to show a picture right now. Baila, we've actually met before. Sarah, this is actually me and Shlomi at an event, Chazak event. I'm not even kidding when I say this. I don't get starstruck often. I was legitimately starstruck. I'm like, so I think Shlomi called it out. Shlomi's like, hey, that's Baila Sebrow. Because Baila, you have to understand, like, in my friend group, like the singles friend group, like Shabbos was a religious thing to sit around and someone would read your article.
Oh,
like we legitimately read your article on a weekly basis. We're big fans.
We would readership.
Yeah, we would skip.
I can help people as a result of it. That's just a fringe benefit.
Yeah.
Oh.
The article that really got me hooked was when someone brought it to my attention was. You probably for sure remember, you may or may not remember, but there was an article about a mother was writing in and she was saying how her like 23-year-old daughter, who unfortunately is not married, God forbid, she's 23, she's over the hill already. So therefore she's starting to date non-Jews now. I'm like, what the heck does that mean?
Well, in some circles, 23 is considered old.
It's crazy.
Sounds crazy, but it really depends on the circle. In the secular world, even if somebody is 40 years old, but they're getting their career started or they're in the midst of growing their career, it's no big deal. And whenever they get married, it's fine. But in the Orthodox world, each community has their set age that they consider over the hill, so to speak. And it's very bad because not everyone can necessarily get married at a particular time and date. It doesn't work that way. There's so many variables why somebody has not gotten married at a certain age. And sometimes it has to do with maturity. Not everyone is ready to be married at a young age. It's a fact. And what we are also seeing so much of is the increase of divorces amongst the younger ages. it's never been this way before. Part of it is because they were jumping into it. Their friends got married. They felt they have nobody to socialize with. They didn't want to be considered as though they're going to need what they would they would assume to be the leftovers, whatever terms they use. And there are young people jumping into marriage when they're not ready. They don't even know the person they're marrying well. They date for a couple of weeks or a few times, and they determine, okay, this is my bashert. I'm going to get married. It takes 2 to 3 months, really. It takes at least 2 to 3 months before the mask comes off. Anybody can talk the talk. You could say whatever you want to say. I once asked, this is crazy, but I once asked somebody who was known to have psychopathic tendencies.
Whoa.
Or sociopathic tendencies. This is a very interesting character. And I said to him, how is it that you make such a good impression on people? Just tell me. Just tell me how you do it. He actually confessed that he practices speaking in front of the mirror. So anybody can do that. But when you date somebody for a longer period of time, you're going to see them in different circumstances. How do they interact with the family of the person they're dating, their friends? How do they interact with their own family members? What do they say about people? What happens if they get stuck in traffic? Are they going to call out and show road rage? You can only hide your true personality for X amount of time. The problem is that in certain communities, they get engaged so quickly that you just don't know. You just don't see these things. And once you're engaged, people will say, chalk it up to pre-wedding jitters. Everyone is nervous before they get married. Just go ahead and get married. And also the assumption is that marriage cures all. I don't know where this came from, but it is a belief. Oh, he's not well. She's not well. She has problems. You know what? They'll get married. It's going to go away. Really? Marriage is like a cold. It goes away? No. Whatever you see, you're going to see more of, good and bad.
It's crazy because I do know someone that unfortunately went through a really bad. She got married. I say this all the time. I'm very, very unforgiving with these reference calls. I feel like it's a hot. People don't know how to give reference calls. It's a hotbed for lashon hara. But unfortunately, she went through typical yeshiva system, whatever. She got married to. When I say a lowlife, the definition, his face is in the dictionary of lowlife. She realized right after they got married that she essentially had been duped. He was trying to. I don't want to give away too many details, but essentially he lied about everything. But essentially, to your point, if someone can fake something for a few weeks, a month, whatever, but over time, you can't fake it. It's really hard to fake it for an extended period of time. So I'm a huge fan of dating for a little bit longer.
Yeah. You know what? It's discouraged in the Orthodox world, and it's discouraged, amongst people who are Shomer Negiah. And I get it. I understand. But there are just ways they should make it work, and not put themselves in a situation of yichud, so they can still observe, the obligation of being Shomer Negiah, and so at least they have the opportunity to spend time to get to know one another, and see them in different circumstances. And by the way, speaking of which, I'm not a fan of picking a fight. Some people believe, I actually wrote an article about it. Somebody has written to me once about that, starting a fight with a person to see how they react. That's also wrong. You don't set somebody up. That's
wrong.
Oh
my goodness.
Oh yeah. I once did an article about that. Somebody wrote to me, but
they tried to like put a set up a scenario to see like how he reacts.
Right. I mean, it's very easy to do it. Just all you have to do is really insult somebody or say something about their family member or do something to pick a fight, and it always backfires. You're not going to see anything. You're not going to see what you want to see. You're not going to see the true personality. But what's going to happen is you're going to mess yourself up if you do that. I mean, why would somebody want to marry a person that picks a fight? You're showing that this is who you are. And this is not yet,
It's pretty
wow.
Stupid. Yeah.
So you say 2 months then is like a good solid time. I mean,
typically the mask will fall off after 2 to 3 months. Now it could happen that much more time is needed. But it shouldn't just be dating. It should be talking on the phone. It should be communicating on the phone. And I know this new trend that, Rabbanim are saying, don't talk on the phone between dates. Shulchan are saying it. I know Rabbanim are saying it. Everyone quotes everyone else, and no one really knows where the source comes from.
Right, exactly.
Don't
Typical.
talk between dates. Don't talk before you go on a date. Where did this come from? It never existed. The more you need to talk, you need to get to know the person. My goodness, you're going to marry somebody, spend the rest of your life, build generations with that person, and you shouldn't talk to them much. Who came up with that? I want to meet that person who came up with that.
Yeah, I feel the common sense cell in your brain has been lost from our dating pool. Totally.
Yeah. There's
no common sense anymore.
My friends actually who are more and like more to the right, almost yeshivish, maybe a little more in the yeshivish crowd, they actually did tell me that. They said that like they were speaking to a Rav, and the Rav had said not to talk between between dates until they've like picked it up, until they're like really starting to go out. And I was like so confused. I was like, well, what happens if you don't see each other from like a Sunday to a Thursday?
Right.
Like you have to keep, at least if you're interested in each other, don't you want to at least know about?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Whatever. I personally was like, I don't get it, but it's not how I personally dated or believed in dating. But it's funny that you bring that up, because I feel like it's more of a more newer. Maybe I'm just hearing about it now, and I was like really confused. I was like, isn't it the opposite? Like, whatever. That's what they were saying.
I don't know how new it is. I mean, I've been aware of this for a couple of years now, several years actually. So I don't know how new it is, and I'm hoping not too many people subscribe to it. Though I will say that in the more right wing, more yeshivish world, they are holding by that more. Maybe they'll send a good Shabbos text, like, one line, good Shabbos, have a wonderful Shabbos, or something like that, or I hope your week went well, have a good Shabbos, if he's a little bit more savvy, the guy will write, I hope your week went well, have a good Shabbos, that'll just write, have a good Shabbos. But how are you going to know the person? It's not just about momentum. You're just never going to know the person. Well, the fact of the matter is you could date somebody for years and never know the person well. And we could take an example from the secular world where they live with each other, right? People live with each other under the same roof, and yet everything is wonderful. And when they get married or they get engaged, they write, he's my everything, she's my everything. They can't stop gushing about each other. All of a sudden, they're in the midst of a messy divorce.
Yeah.
But the fact remains that people don't really let their hair down, so to speak, until there's that legal piece of paper that declares them as husband and wife. So if people who live together and know everything about each other, they think they know everything about each other, if they can get divorced, and they feel they really know everything, and they do, to some extent they do, to a great extent they do, how much more so a couple who barely talks to one another and they get married?
Right.
It's a mistake.
You're just setting yourself up for higher divorce rates, and
I mean, the divorce rate already is growing by leaps and bounds. It's some divorces should not happen. There's some divorces, and I know for a fact, because Baruch Hashem, I have been zocha to make quite a number of shidduchim, bli ayin hara, but those are not the shidduchim that I'm really that proud of. I take that as something that Hashem put me as being his messenger, because he's the one who's Mazavik Zivogim. But what I feel very good about and what I feel best about are the marriages where a couple had divorced and I was zocha to put them back together and remarry. But it can only be done only in some circumstances. Number one,
it's very rare, but yeah.
Or she could not have remarried anybody else. And oftentimes people do reach out to me. I'm actually in the middle of a case. Somebody reached out to me. There's nothing that I can do about. It was a woman who divorced her first husband. In retrospect, she says it was done too quickly, without going for therapy, though that's what he wanted. Anyway, she remarried a guy who was abusive, and she's now very good friends with husband number one, but halachically was told she can't remarry her first husband because she had married somebody else. And he's not a Kohen, but that's just the way it is. I can't find loopholes. I'm not a rabbi. I don't play rabbi.
Right.
Something that's not in my area, I defer elsewhere. I would never take it upon myself to speak for an authority that I know nothing about, or a topic I know nothing
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm really excited to delve into a lot more topics here. But we wanted to know exactly, how did you get into the shidduch process? Like, if you had any event that happened in your life that really sparked an idea to start setting people up. And we wanted to also know, just like, you don't have to say a number, but like, how around, like, how many matches, successful matches that you've made, and kind of just telling us about yourself and your background a little bit.
about. Sure.
Yeah.
So I made my first shidduch when I was 18, and that was pretty
Damn.
much a fluke. But when I was a child, I always had a fascination with matching people. And I remember an incident which is a little bit eerie. I was, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old, and my parents had two couples over for Shabbos afternoon. It wasn't lunches. Back then, it was more common to have people over for, afternoon tea and, tea and, and cake and fruit, whatever. So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
my mother went into the kitchen to get refreshments, and I knew this couple, because both couples, because they were friends with my parents. So anyway, followed my mother into the kitchen. I like listening to adult conversations. I was raised in a pretty much adult. No, I was raised in a very adult environment. There's almost a 9-year age difference between my sister and I, and so I was surrounded
Wow.
by adults. I mean, I had friends, but but anyway, I like reading books. Somehow I think I grew up. That's how I grew up. So anyway, I liked listening to conversations. I followed my mother into the kitchen as she was getting refreshments, and I told her that the wife from couple A, I think, should be married to the husband from couple B. I just kind of
Wait,
felt
they were married?
no, there were two step couples, but I felt that there was a mismatch.
Oh, okay.
I just felt that they should be married to each other, though they were married to whoever they were married
Different
to.
people. Yeah. Yeah.
And my mother said, "I don't talk like that." Don't I said, "No, I'm just telling you that." And I was actually,
Right.
believe it or not, I was a very shy kid too, so I would just sit there just listening. I didn't say a word. Anyway, so I never brought it up again. And years later, I remember I was coming home from seminary. I went to seminary at night, and I came home, and it turned out that from both couples, one of the spouses passed away, as time passed. And the couple that I felt should be married to each other did actually get married to each other, though it had nothing to do with me. It just so happened. Now, it could be a coincidence because they knew each other. There was familiarity. I don't know. But anyway, at 18, it was a fluke. I introduced the couple to one another, really, because I thought maybe they would just hang out, go to the movies. I'm 18 years old. I myself was not even in Shidduchim yet. And they got
Right.
married. Um, when I was
It's
19 years
crazy.
old, I had this idea that religious from people in the different colleges should have an opportunity to meet one another. And so I called up the Homoac Hotel. I don't know if you've ever heard of that hotel.
No.
And I called them and I said, I want to put a Shabbaton together. I mean, I hadn't been to Shabbatones in school, so I knew about Shabbatones. I think it would be a great idea. Anyway, so I called up, Paul Davidman, the Homoac Hotel, told him I want to put together a Shabbaton. He asked me how many people. I had no clue, how many people. I didn't know from numbers. I was thinking, I don't know, 20, 30. And then I was still wondering, oh my God, I hope I'll even be able to get 20, 30 people, because I had never done
Right.
this before in my life. So anyway, he said, I'm not opening up a hotel for just a few people, but I do open for, for afrov, and bar mitzvahs and sheva brachas, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, he called me and he told me a date that, the hotel will be open. For a particular Shabbos. I thought, okay, fine, I'm going to get to work. So this is before the internet. I went to my electric typewriter and typed up a flyer,
Nice.
and and then I went and made copies in a stationery store, because that's just the way it used to be. And I
Hmm.
went to the different campuses. And I started handing out flyers, and people called, and again, there was no cell phone, so they couldn't call me. And my mother, may she rest in peace, was a European lady, and she would take the calls during the day, and I would come home, and she would tell me, and in Yiddish, she would say, Goldberger, Goldstein, and she would say, Friedman, and she would go into conversations, and she would kind of vet them for me, and it was really very fun. And then she would say, and she would say in Yiddish, "Feiner Bucher," he was, it's a fine boy. Anyway, it ended up being there were over 300 people.
Wow.
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 Shabbaton.
Wow.
So and then I continued, and I always continued running events. Interestingly enough, when I met my husband, Zechrono Livroch, I lost my husband 7.5 years ago. It
Wow.
turned out that he was from Pelham Parkway, and he had this idea that there's so many Orthodox students at Einstein, and we told his parents, how about we use our basement so they can get together? And he did that as well. I didn't know that. It's just when I was engaged, and people were telling me, when I said who I'm engaged, I'm engaged to David Saber. Oh, I used to go to his singles events, and like he was such a humble person. He didn't even tell me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really min hashamayim. And in fact, when he became ill, I said to him, okay, now everything has to stop because I want to be with you and take care of you. And he said, no, you're going to make more shidduchim. You're going to run more events. And I did it by his bedside. I used to put the events together and match people from his bedside, where that's where my life became, right by his bedside. And that's just the way it was. And in fact, whenever a frum nurse would walk into the room, he would immediately summon me to become their shadchan. Are you single? Oh, a Baila, yeah, I have to help her.
Right.
So, yeah,
That is so crazy.
Wow. Yeah, so this is something that I never stopped. I continued doing this throughout the years, in different ways. When my kids were very young, I didn't run events at that time, but I always had singles at my table, and I always matched people. So I never really stopped. It was something that has become a part of me, and I love doing it, and I do it as a chesed. I consider it a privilege that I'm able to do it. And we're all obligated to do chesed. Each and every one of us. Hashem gives each person their strengths to use for good, to use for the greater good, to help other people, or else he wouldn't give it to us. So, thank God I'm able to help people. I wish I could help much more. And every time I make a shidduch, it's like, I wish I could help more people. I wish more people would get engaged. So it's kind of like I'm happy for the couple, but it's also kind of bittersweet. What about all the others that are still searching for their basher? So, hopefully everybody will meet their basher.
Amen.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, like you said, like Hashem sends messengers, and you're the messenger. And it sounds like not just you, but your husband also. It's also through like the zchus of your husband as well, which is really beautiful. So, I mean, it sounds just like an amazing thing that you're able to do, and vicariously through him as well. It's very nice. It's a beautiful thought. Yeah. So Max and we also wanted to know, like, what sets you apart though from different shadchanim? Like everybody gravitates towards a certain person, and we just wanted to know what sets you apart, because we know like that you are we know you are very successful. We also, like Max said, we really enjoy your article in the Five Towns Jewish Times. But we wanted to hear from you what sets you apart from the other shadchanim that are out there.
Well, I don't want to refer to myself as setting myself apart, because whoever works for shidduchim, whoever does something sincerely for the greater good and for no other reason, for the greater good, it's meritorious. So I don't like to refer to myself as I'm set apart from anybody else. But I do have, I've been doing this for many years. I've been doing this for over 40 years. I've been doing this a very long time. I know this work of chesed. I don't refer to it as a business. I refer to it as a chesed. And I never refer to it as a business. So if anything would set me apart, is I don't refer to it as a business. I refer to it as a chesed. That's the only thing that if I would say setting apart. Other than that, I don't like to describe myself in that manner. And also, I say it like it is. I don't play games.
That's the best part.
I will not lie for anybody. And if I have to tell somebody off in a nice way, really, tough love, I will do it. I will not. I will try very hard not to offend somebody. I'm very sensitive when I suggest a shidduch, something that I think of. I'm always very very sensitive to how the person will take it. So it's very interesting that um, there are people that no matter who the shidduch is, who or what type of person is being suggested to them, they're grateful that somebody thought of them. And then there are people who, if they don't think the person is up to par with based on what they're looking for, they take offense. And I'm always very careful not to offend someone. I just had an incident. I just back 2 weeks ago. It was before Hanukkah. This elderly gentleman saw a woman on Facebook, and he assumed I know her. So that's very interesting. You know how Facebook is. You're friends with people you have no clue who you're friends with. You don't
Yeah.
really know
Yeah.
who.
Right.
And because I'm a shotgun, I run events, and and people reach out to me, and they message me. All right, I accept their friendship if it looks like a real profile.
Sure.
But there's some I don't even know. Some I've never met, or if I do, I don't remember. I didn't even remember that I met you at an event. And here you
Yeah.
got a picture of me.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah. So anyway, so this elderly gentleman reached out to me, and I told him that I don't know her, but I did look at this woman's profile, and she listed her age. In the back. When you click on it, it's about. I said, she's significantly younger than you, and he goes, "Oh, that's great." And I said, "No, because unless she tells me that she wants to date a guy who is significantly older than her, for me to contact her out of the blue, that's going to be hurtful to her. It's going to make her feel like, oh, I can't get someone my own age. Now, maybe she's okay with marrying an older guy or dating an older guy, and some women are, and that's okay. But for me to presume that she would be interested in him, regardless of whatever wonderful qualities he has. And I'm not saying he's a bad guy, he's a great guy, but it would be hurtful, and I would not do it. And I've had people who offered me money. I'll give you $10,000 if you make my shidduch. I'll give you this, I'll give you that. But at the end of the day, I answer to a higher authority. I dirty money earned by bringing pain to another person has no kiyum. What do I want that for?
Mm.
Yeah, I definitely have a lot of friends who are ladies who tell me this all the time, where it's really insulting sometimes. It's like, the girl is, let's say, under 30 and is being suggested a guy who's 53 with 4 kids. It's very, very hurtful.
Oh my God, it's extremely hurtful.
Yeah.
It's telling her, you know what?
This is the best we can do. This is the best we can do.
All you can get.
That's what they're telling them.
How could you do that to somebody? It's breaking their spirit. That's only thing, no matter what somebody's going through in life, the one thing that carries them through is hope. You can never shatter anyone's hope. Never, never shatter anyone's hope.
And
Whatever
this shit looks
you want something, put it out into the universe that's what you want, and Hashem will help. But to shatter their hope, no, that's not okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what's going on right now. It's crazy what's going on. As I said this before the podcast, I've been saying it a little bit more often. The shidduch system has gotten so bad where you have a straight male make a shidduch podcast as myself. Literally, that's how bad it's gotten.
It's unfortunately not getting any better. We're living in a world where there are more shadchanim than ever before. It's become the newest trend to say you're a shadchan. So with all the shadchanim who can have a list of shidduch that they made, there are so many unmarried people, and never before in history have we had singles in their 40s who are attractive, accomplished, come from fine families, mainstream, and they've never been married. So something is very wrong here.
Right.
When there's an epidemic of any kind, you have to say there's a problem. What are we going to do? Right? When COVID came about, the first thing that everybody was trying to do is let's get a vaccine. I'm not getting into the politics of that. Don't get me started on that. I have enough enemies. I don't need to get started with enemies regarding vaccination. But
it's just the idea. It's just the idea.
That when there's any kind of an illness, you wanna eliminate the amount of people that are going to get sick, and you want to help those that have already contracted the illness. We know there's a problem. We know there are multitudes of singles unable to find their bashert. We also know that every Tom, Dick, and Harry and their grandmother is a shotgun. But yet, hey, they're not getting married, so something is wrong. Something is wrong, and we need to figure out what's wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I can help the people that I try to help the people that I know. I can't help the entire world, but I wish people would look at it through clear lenses and not say, oh, it's the system. What system? What system is wrong? It's a shidduch crisis. What crisis? Explain to me what the crisis is. And people say the word shidduch crisis. They have no clue what they're saying. Oh, it's a shidduch crisis, right? Explain what the crisis is, and if you can identify the problem, that's the first step to the solution.
Yeah,
that's so funny. That was one of Max's questions to you. Is there a shidduch? The definite what?
No, exactly, because I feel like a lot of people have different definitions of the shidduch crisis. So I wanted to get your definition of what the shidduch crisis is, and if you believe there is something.
All right, so let's first understand that coined term shidduch crisis. So originally, this term was coined because the girls started dating. The more yeshivish girls were starting to date at a young age. And the boys were dating the young men. I have to be careful. We can't say boys and girls. Yeah. I have to say young men and young ladies. That's another thing that's changed. But I mean, I don't want to.
People get mad at you for that.
Always be a girl, you know what I mean? But anyway,
the
young ladies, just to be politically correct, the young ladies start dating at a younger age. When they come home from seminary at 19, they're all starting to date. And it used to be that the boys, the young men, were still in yeshiva, and they would be what the coin term, they were kept in the freezer. So what was happening is there were fewer young men available for these young ladies, and if they didn't get married when they were 19 or 20, then the new crop, I hate to use that expression, but you know what I mean, that it came about, the other young ladies who came from seminary, and these young ladies were just kind of passed over, and they were considered, whatever, we want to go out with the new, with the younger people, because there were fewer guys available for them to date. So that's where the coin term shidduch crisis came about. The problem is, like with any term, it's now attached to everything. Now, if a 40-year-old has never been married, it's because of the shidduch crisis. If a 60-year-old divorced person it's a shidduch crisis. No, it then becomes a personal crisis. So each person who is single for their own reason, and they know why they're single. Every person who is single knows why they're single. I mean, not everyone wants to admit it to themselves, but if they have any kind of self-awareness, they know why they are still single. And if they can point fingers at themselves or at somebody else, and they need to address it. So it's not a one-size-fits-all answer.
Yeah, I get that. There was one thing mentioned actually on another podcast that was called the Mislabeled Podcast, and one thing I did agree with him on was the only thing really that can really help you in this, I guess, whatever you want to call it, if you want to call it a system, you want to call it just, finding your bashert or whatever, is to work on yourself. I personally think that's a huge, at least for me, to continue to just work on yourself and just come, instead of just blaming everything on everybody else, just focus on yourself and really kind of figure out what you can do better for yourself. And that's the only thing that can help you. And I thought that was a great thing. I don't know.
Again, that's case by case. It's not necessarily an individual's fault why they're single. I mean, in some cases it is, meaning they don't have the self-awareness of what they're looking for may not be that. I mean, the type of person they're looking for, that type of person may not be looking for who they are. So that area is where they do need to make peace with and work on. But then there are other factors involved too that really are no fault of their own. It could be that maybe the family is not well connected. It could be that what they're looking for in terms of hashkafa is not available to them. There are young ladies that are very educated, and they're looking for a very educated person with the same hashkafa, and they're just not able to find it. And I guess that would mean making peace with giving up on one or the other. But you know what? You really can't tell somebody who is looking for something that makes sense. Not, I'm not talking about somebody, a guy who says, all right, I'm looking for a 5'7", blonde, blue-eyed a girl. And then there are people who do that too. All right. When somebody says that, okay, you need to work on yourself, because you know what? Number one, she could become a blonde if you wanted to become a blonde,
Right.
or you don't even know if she really is a blonde, and she could put on contact lenses and change the eye color too. So yes, there are things that people can do to work on themselves, but they need to have the self-awareness to do that. And sometimes there are things that are just beyond their control. Depending on what kind of circle, hashkafic circle they live in, it and if they're considered what I hate to use that term, over the hill, what they're considered in the neighborhood, and people start setting them up with shidduchim that are totally not for them, and it's not going to work. And to just get married just to be married, and it's not going to work, then why start in the first place?
Right.
Yeah. I definitely can think of a lot of women feel that way right now. I feel like they just feel like there's just no guys out there. I don't know. I'm sure there are a lot of guys who feel like this as well.
Oh yeah. By the way, it really cracks me up. And you know what? More than crack, it upsets me when I hear that people say that guys have it easier. It's not the way it works.
Yeah, it's complete
That would
BS.
be the
Yes.
case, all the guys would be married. The fact is, and I know when I run events, I have a lot of guys in all age groups. So I do events for different age groups. There are single, never married guys. There are divorced guys. The same as amongst the young ladies. It's just that they're not as outspoken about the issues. They don't talk about it as much. The women are more outspoken, and saying that, there's nobody to marry. For a guy to say that, but the fact is, if it was so easy for guys, they would all be married. If they want to be married, they'd all be married. So how do you explain that?
Yeah.
How can somebody who says that guys have it easier, how do they explain the fact that there's so many unmarried men who want to be married? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That's right.
When I was dating, and I was going through the process of different things, different emotions. One of the things that I always thought I was ignorant of was thinking that, the men have it so easy, or the guys have it so easy. And like, as Max and I have actually done this podcast, and the more guys that I've talked to, and people have come through the woodwork about how they actually feel about just dating in general, I realize it's not exactly the same how women go through dating, but it's definitely not easy. Like it's a misconception in my
absolutely
in my book. Yeah.
I mean, just like it's in different ways. Now, where guys may have the upper hand a little bit is that it's the custom to suggest, especially the younger ages, to suggest the shidduch to the guy first. So he has the first hand in saying the upper hand, and saying no first. That's about it. But just because he says yes doesn't mean the girl's going to say yes or the young lady's going to say yes. It doesn't. It doesn't quite work that way.
Right. Right. What advice, though, do you have for guys that are very attached to the idea of how a woman is, how they look? Because we were talking about how it actually is something that guys really are attached to, is how a girl actually looks. Physical looks really matter. But we were just wondering, like, what's your idea of how to go about that, I guess, in dating?
Okay. So if anybody is going to tell anyone is going to tell any single person that attraction is not important, they're lying. And how do we know that attraction is important? Because let's look at the Torah.
That's right.
Were our imahos not described as being beautiful? Let's face it. Were they not described? If attraction wasn't an important factor, why would the Torah mention that about our imahos who were beautiful women? They wouldn't even mention it. Not only that, but the Torah goes on to talk about Leah and describing that her eyes were swollen and therefore was not as attractive as her sister Rachel. She was crying because she was afraid she would marry Esav. And she was crying, and that affected her beauty. The Torah talks about that. You didn't write that. I didn't write that. The The Torah wrote that. The Torah talks about, and it's not just about women being attractive or being, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But it also talks about men too. Yosef is described as having been a very handsome person, a beautiful looking man, to the extent that we just finished the parsha, where Yosef was accused of committing a crime, and Potiphar's wife was attracted to his handsomeness. So the Torah goes into detail, and there's so many examples where the Torah goes into detail talking about attractiveness. Now, we know that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It doesn't mean that it's one particular look. It doesn't mean that it has to be a blonde, a redhead, a brunette. But attraction is important. Not only that, but it's not permitted. One is not permitted to marry a person that they don't feel an attraction for. And from a common sense perspective, how are you going to live with someone you're not attracted to? Again, it's beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And I know many people who have described a certain look, and that's not who they married. They married somebody else completely different who they think is the most beautiful person in the world. And great. And we all look different. Each person has their own individual features of what makes them attractive. And it's okay for somebody to say, I'm not attracted. There's some shadchanim who they won't hear from it. What do you mean? She's very beautiful. But that's not what he thinks, or not what she thinks.
Right.
So
I always tell those,
a man or a woman, yes, attraction is important.
Yeah. Anytime someone does that to me, I always tell them, like, you want to marry him? Go for it. It seems like you're really into that person.
If we could take an example from the secular world, Pierce Brosnan, I think his name is, he's been receiving a lot of trolls about his wife who had gained weight, and he thinks she's the most beautiful person in the world because when he married her, and that's what remained in his head, he doesn't look at her weight gain. To him, she's the most beautiful woman in the world. And from a personal perspective, I mentioned my husband. When I married my husband, to the last day, I always thought he was the most handsome person. In fact, a few days before he was nifter, I was watching him, and everyone said he's a shell of his former self. But I remember looking at him thinking, there's not a man more beautiful than David, my husband. Oh. That always remained with me. So who's going to say, it doesn't matter what happened, that people said he's a shell of his former self. Yeah, he had cancer and he was skin and bones. But to me, I saw him in my heart, in my eyes. He was as beautiful as he was the day I met him and the day I stood under the chuppah with him. Mm-hmm. Yes, attraction is important. Now, it should not be the only thing. You don't marry somebody just because you like their looks. That would be a huge mistake. I mean, that's just suicide. But yes, you need that attraction. I do agree. Yes, you have to give it a chance, and sure, okay. But at the end of the day, you have to feel an attraction, which is what my issue is. Pictures accompanying resumes. And that's where the problem is to begin with. Number one, I know we're getting off topic of from your question, but
no, we love it. It's fine. Yeah.
People Photoshop their pictures. And if you have an idea, whether it's a man or a woman, if you have an idea before you meet somebody that they look a certain way and then they look different than the picture, you're already turned off. Then again, if before pictures, even if people met one another, they weren't instantly attracted to them, but as they started talking, they became attractive to them, and that happens many times. You meet somebody at a first glance, I don't think she's pretty, I don't think he's handsome, whatever, and then as you start talking to them, their neshama, the eyes are the window to the soul. I mean, I love that expression. You start seeing their beauty, and they become beautiful to you. So that's another thing. Pictures is like, oh my God, that you don't even get your foot in the door with pictures.
Okay, so you prefer resumes with no pictures.
So as I said, I've been doing Shidduchim for over 40 years. Resumes didn't exist. Pictures didn't exist.
Right.
You had your shadchan. If you trusted your shadchan, if you felt your shadchan was an honest person, and he or she described, you trusted them. You went on a date. And you gave it the chance for the person to become attractive to you. Where maybe at first glance not, but as you're sitting and talking, the person became attractive to you. We don't have that opportunity anymore because we now have pictures that are Photoshop and some who are not photogenic. Some people, I know young ladies that get rejected because they're not photogenic. Maybe the lighting wasn't good, whatever it is, and they don't even get that opportunity to go on a date because the guy says, "Oh, I don't like what she looks like," or better yet, they look at a picture and I don't like her personality. And how exactly do you know that? How do you know her personality based on a picture? I mean, that gets me. How do you know how do you know that you don't have the same personality? Well, no answer. Like, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I bring a guy's perspective in on this a little bit?
These
Yeah.
two.
So, well, number one, I used to trust people. There's still a few people that I do trust, but a lot of the trust has completely out the door with me as far as I think you mentioned it best. There are more shadchanim today than there ever has been. There are less matches than there ever has been because everyone thinks they're a shadchan. And in my opinion, when you just find a random person on a WhatsApp chat, you call yourself a shadchan. I don't consider that a shadchan. But
Don't get me started on that. Oh my God.
oh, we'll definitely. Yeah, I'll ask my question. We'll definitely get into WhatsApp chats. But as a guy, I don't trust anybody. The one thing I have to go on, I don't even look at the resumes are stupid because, in my opinion, they're all the same. I've looked at a lot of resumes in my life. They're all the same. I'm family oriented, goal oriented, looking for someone who's family oriented.
They do that. They don't know what to write, so they copy their friends. They just change names.
Copy their friends. I remember as when I first started, when I was like 20 or whatever, and I was saying stuff. I was sitting down with a quote unquote shadchan. I think she's terrible what she does, but she was asking me, and I would say what was on my mind or whatever, and she would just take that and then just use a buzzword, and she's like, "Oh, family oriented. Okay, family oriented. We're gonna put that on there." It's all BS. So the one thing as a guy that we go on is a picture. Because there is nothing else to go on. I don't trust the person giving me this match. They're essentially saying she's the greatest. Everyone says the same thing. The resume is all BS. Like no one else is family oriented in Shidduchim. That's a given. The only thing else we have is a picture because I don't want to drive an hour and a half, pay a toll, and the second I get there, this could have been avoided from the beginning. So from a guy's perspective, that's what we're going on basically. The only thing is, if I had someone that I could absolutely trust and they're like, just like what I do with other people, just trust me on this. Because I was that person that I didn't need to see a picture or whatever, any of that stuff, but it always backfired in my opinion.
So, you mentioned driving an hour and a half. Yes, there are plenty of people who drive even further distances and even fly to discover that they saw a picture and the person looks nothing like the picture. As I mentioned, people Photoshop. So there goes that whole concept of pictures. In terms of
or it's not updated.
Well, no, people Photoshop. You can do anything today, and with AI, oh my
Right.
God, I mean, I could make myself look 30 years younger if I wanted to with AI. You can do whatever you want to do. Anyone can do that. So, and people do, by the way. People will Photoshop just to get their foot in the door, and I know people personally who post themselves on social media. They have their profile picture, and you know what? It doesn't look anything like them, who they are. And I've had cases where guys have said to me, I went on a date with a girl, and I don't know who I went on a date with, but it's not the one in the picture.
It's happened to me all the time. Catfish, yeah, 100%.
So there goes that whole thing. That's number one.
That's her point. Yeah.
You're talking about trust. If you can't trust your shadchan, that shadchan is not for you. You shouldn't even be dealing with a person you don't trust in any aspect of life, whether it's shidduchim or anything else. If you can't trust a person, you don't even ask them the time because they're not going to give you the right time.
Yeah. You know what? I've said this before. Like, we've had a whole episode about being burnt out because a lot of times people just come. Like, I feel like there's no etiquette anymore. It's like someone would come up to me at a kiddush. They don't even like introduce themselves. They don't even say hello. They're like, "So I hear you're single. What are you looking for?" I'm like, "Who the hell are you? I don't even know who you are. Get lost." I've said this before also, where they're like, "What are you looking for?" I'm like, "I'm not looking for anything. I don't know what you're talking about." And they can't wrap their heads around, like, I really just don't want to talk to you. Like, hi, how are you? It's nice to meet you.
That's just being
An
tactic.
idiot.
That's they have no business doing that. It's really none of their business. You're not obligated to give them any answers.
I don't. Unfortunately, I think most people do, and that's when they get burnt out.
All right.
But
Yeah.
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 So let's get into.
You should not be dealing with anyone who doesn't
No.
respect you. You're a human being. Just because you're looking for a shidduch doesn't make you any less important or any less human than somebody who's not looking for a shidduch. And just because somebody's married, it cracks me up. People who have been single for a long time, all of a sudden they get married, and all of a sudden they're ready to give advice. I'm like, you know what?
Oh
You're
yeah.
the expert. I mean, just because you're married, great, you got married, mazel tov. Wish you a lifetime of happiness. You're not an expert. You're not an expert in singles and telling them they have to do this or they have to do that because you were that person a year ago. They just
Yeah.
were lucky to find somebody, and
It's true.
a vote to you and thank Hashem and all that. But it doesn't make you any better. Being married is a status. It doesn't make one better than a person who was not married.
It's true. I think it is a disease. The second you get married, all of a sudden you've got all the answers. You've got all the answers.
Yeah, they think.
But
why even talk to people?
For me, there were just more questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, there were just more questions.
But let's definitely get into the WhatsApp groups. We actually just had on. Someone, Natan, and I feel like people are constantly being taken advantage of. Beyond, I feel like there are a lot of essentially people are desperate to get married. They have no other way of meeting people, and they're sucked into paying $18 a month for a WhatsApp chat that's essentially useless. So I definitely want to hear your take on this.
There, unfortunately, is a lot of exploitation. And that happens in every area. Whenever there is a need for something or there is a sense of urgency, there's going to be exploitation. That's just the way it is. We were talking before the show began how years ago, I remember on 34th Street, as soon as I would get off the subway, there would be fortune tellers, and they knew their targets. They knew who to hit on, and they would walk over to someone who seemed down or seemed angry or not sure where they're going, and they would approach them and they would say, "Hi, you look very sad. Let me give you a free reading." And they would go up to their little studio, and they would either use tarot cards or they would read their palm or a crystal or whatever they use, and they would say, "Oh, I see there's a curse on you. Ooh, I see you have enemies. For $250, I could remove it for you." And people did, and people would shell out a lot of money. This the same urgency exists today. People are so scared they're never going to get married because they see and they have friends who are not married, that there's this sense of urgency, and people who don't care, who have no scruples, will exploit on that urgency. And so it became in vogue to start charging to be on their WhatsApp group. WhatsApp is free. Last I checked, WhatsApp is free. Facebook is free unless you place an ad on, you want to advertise on Meta. Yeah, then there's a charge, but only to Meta. I don't even know how it's legal for people to charge to be on their WhatsApp group to see the same people that you're going to see on hundreds of other WhatsApp groups. It's the same singles. The ones that are on one group are on another group. You see them at singles events, and that's just the way it is. The world is small and the Orthodox world is smaller, and within specific hashkafic groups, even smaller. So whoever's on one WhatsApp group will be on another. So, I mean, if you do the math, just do the math, right? If it's $18 a month and there are, I don't know, 200, 300 people, you do the math.
It's a lot. It's money.
That's money. Yeah. It's money. Yeah.
That's real money. Yeah.
Yeah. And also,
it's polished. It's wrong. It's just wrong. Look, I've been there were administrators of group who offered me a commission to bring them singles, and I said no. Singles are not for sale. And in fact, I've had, I run my own events. And when I run my own events, I also bring in shadchanim because as I'm busy with the infrastructure, making sure the soda's out there, this is that's there. I also want to have facilitators. I like to bring in, a number of facilitators at my own events when I run them. So I've had people who were facilitating at my events who would take names and phone numbers and sell them to these people who charge $18 a month. Of course, I never allowed them back.
No.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how
dirty
crazy. Yes, yeah. Business.
I view this as the Wild West. There's no
control over it. And because there's no control, people can do whatever they want to do. And you're right, it's wild west out there.
It is. But
yeah. Also the fact that there's no guarantee on the WhatsApp groups, like you're not guaranteed anything. You're not guaranteed to be set up. You're not guaranteed to have matches per month. You're not guaranteed to talk to anybody. So the sole fact of like panic, like you said, and like trying to get onto a platform of like, well, you're single, so the only way for us to set you up is this way. Like it's just like so crazy.
Right. Well, realistically, there's no way you can guarantee anyone's going to have a date. I mean, there's no way. To play devil's advocate, there's no way to guarantee that. But to charge them for being on it, that's a whole. That's just a whole. That's beyond the pale. That's just beyond the pale. It's a whole different level of ugliness.
It's exploitation. It's exactly
exploitation.
What it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What do you think if you were to pick one like concrete thing that could actually make a change in this system today? Is there something we can do? It's really just about talking about this more, bringing things more to light, having people understand what the hell is going on even?
Well, awareness for sure. Awareness is definitely very important. Educating people about what's wrong with the system. But really what would change everything is if we can go back to the old way of making shidduchim. That's really the answer. The fact is that the old way worked. It worked. Forget about what I'm saying. You don't have to listen to what I'm saying. But take a look what's going on out there, right? We have so many matchmakers and so many singles, and it's like they're not being matched. I'm meeting people that tell me they haven't had a date. I spoke to a guy who was in his 40s. Great guy. He told me that he hasn't had a date in 2 years. And he doesn't want to go out with just anybody just to be on a date because he's very tactless oriented. And he hasn't been on a date in 2 years. And he claims he was blacklisted. Wow. That's another thing. People do blacklist. Whatever it is. I mean, I don't want to get into too many details because it's private, but it's not just this guy. It's women. They haven't had a date in a long time. Where did that ever happen? It didn't exist. Not only that, but years ago, people would date more than one person at a time. Now, if you have a date with somebody, it means you're busy. You're in a relationship already. It's considered you're cheating. If you went on one date with somebody, you're not allowed to go on a second date. You're not allowed to go on a date with somebody else because you may or may not go on a second date with that person. And so you're saying no to the suggestion. Meanwhile, when you're actually ready, that guy is not ready or that girl is not ready. And, the old time ladies of yesteryear used to say, until you have a ring on your finger, you're single,
Nice.
That was actually said to me once. One of my mother's close friends is also a matchmaker, and she had brought up a guy who I think was almost like getting engaged or something. And she's like, no, like I could try to set him up. I think it would be a good idea for you. And I was like, I'm pretty sure he's in like a relationship. And she's like, not engaged yet. Not engaged yet. I was like, oh my Lord.
If you're dating somebody, I would not recommend that recommend that anybody start dating another person. It's confusing and also when you're dating. So, but if you've had one date with a person and you don't even know if you're going to go on a second date, and even if you go on a second date,
it's nothing.
Meet somebody else and talk to them and see. It's like if you're looking for a job, would you not
apply to one job?
Interview? Would you not go on an interview somewhere else if you offered an interview because you had one interview? If you're looking for a house, would you look at one house and not do anything until you either go into contract or don't go into contract? No, you would look at as many houses as you can until you're serious. And once you're serious and you're ready to go into contract, okay, you're not going to look anymore. You're just going to confuse yourself, and it's also unfair to the seller as well.
So besides for first of all, when do you think this shift has happened where it is wrong to do that, and what else were we doing back then that we are not doing now that's completely destroying everything?
Well, first of all, as I said, people did go out on dates with multiple people, not before a relationship has been established. So, and not everyone has that opportunity to go out with more than one person. That's also in the last several years. What really, and this is what I keep saying, we need to go back to the old system. We need to go back to the system that actually worked. The
Right.
system where not everyone is a matchmaker. That's number one, and it's so easy to be a match. No, really, because it's so
It's
easy.
great. No, 100%.
Think about
Yeah,
what's involved in being a matchmaker today as opposed to years ago. So what's
great.
involved in being a matchmaker today? All you have to do is click the send button. That's it.
Right. Yeah.
You saw a woman presented, a man presented. You just forward it. You click forward, send, boom. Okay, it either works, it doesn't work. Who cares? Right?
Yep.
That's the system
Yep.
today. And
Sure.
matchmaker, because I clicked the
I
send,
forwarded a message.
forwarded a
Yeah.
message. Therefore, I'm a matchmaker, right?
That's right.
Years ago, what was involved? The matchmaker met the man, met the woman, interviewed them, got to know them as best as he or she could. Now, look, there's no guarantees with anything, but at least you got a feel for their personality, what would make them happy, and what would make them an appropriate spouse for the person that they're suggesting. They got to know the people. You knew the people that you were matching. That's how it used to be. That's not, and you trusted them, but that doesn't exist anymore today. You're not building a relationship. In fact, this is what happens a lot too. Somebody sees a person presented on a WhatsApp group, and then they're going to reach out to 10 different people to make that match. And whoever gets in first, that's the shotgun.
It's great. It's
10 people
yeah.
are suggesting the same shidduch. Click, click,
Yeah.
click, 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 click. That's how we're doing shidduchim today. And we wonder, why are we having a problem?
Right.
I hate. It's one of the biggest reasons why I hate WhatsApp chats, because I feel like you're just forwarding messages, and not to mention there's a platform out there today that I know two separate cases firsthand. This is not through anyone else. These are people that I know and have confirmed that have been set up with their sister.
Well, that especially if it's
that is a no under every circumstance. That should never happen.
That could happen if somebody has two different last names. So that could happen.
But they have
the same last name.
The same last name. Yeah, because they don't read.
Same name.
Yeah. Because
they don't even look at it. It just comes up on the thing like,
it just comes up.
Computer said, yeah.
I've heard of that. I've heard of that.
You like chocolate. She likes chocolate. That's a 98% match right there. So
she likes chocolate. He likes chocolate. She has a beating pulse. He's got a beating pulse. So it's a shidduch.
It's a match made in heaven. That's right.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But Baila, we know we're like getting into our time. I did want to ask you, like, for the singles that are out there that are having a hard time, like, I know singles that are, let's say, older or even on the younger end of the spectrum that are having either a lull in dating or they really feel like they're lost. And I know like a lot can like weigh on somebody. What is your advice to those out there that are really struggling, that are having a hard time?
Okay, so it's okay for people to take a break, everyone needs a little bit of a break. If people have been dating for a long period of time and it's not working, I tell them it's okay. You could take a break, whatever a break means for you. If it's a few days, a few weeks, a month, a vacation, whatever you need. Use that time to make a list, 2 lists. And I tell people to make 2 lists. Make a list of what you're looking for, things that are very important to you. Not something insignificant or something frivolous. What is really important to you that you cannot do without? On your other list, second piece of paper, write the type of person that you're looking for, the type of person that you think will make you happy. and then compare the list and see maybe something needs to be altered. I just gave a talk last week at a singles event, and I those were the exact same things that I said, and I didn't expect you to ask me this question, but I told them to make these two lists. Make these two lists. What is really important to you? It shouldn't be 10 items. You don't need a laundry list. There's usually two, three things that are really important that you know that you cannot be without. Whatever it is, whether it's hashkafa, something in hashkafa, whatever it is, whatever is important to you, and then make on a separate piece of paper the type of person that you're looking for, and see maybe there's a mismatch. Maybe what you're bringing to the table is not necessarily what somebody on the list that you're looking for wants. Maybe they're looking for something else. And but this has to be done privately. I mean, maybe if the person wants to ask a friend, someone they trust, a family member, but just to be realistic about whether what they're looking for is what that type of person is looking for as well. So there's a lot of self introspection that people need to do, and it's okay to self introspect, to ponder and self introspect throughout life, because sometimes things change in life. There are different things that people go through, and just to be realistic, and not just be with that list, but also to be savvy and realize and have the understanding that there are going to be people who are going to take advantage, you know exploit. Don't just go give your money to anybody. Don't give your money to somebody who suddenly became a matchmaker and is quoting they made 1,000 shidduchim or 800 shidduchim, and all of a sudden they're giving lessons how to be a matchmaker. I mean, give me a break. It's you have to know who to trust. Trust your matchmaker. If you don't trust your matchmaker, don't work with that person. It's okay. Fire your matchmaker. And if you're not paying them, you really what exactly are you anybody? What is anybody losing?
Right.
You're not losing the
right.
isn't losing. If you feel that person can't help you, it doesn't get you. You need somebody who gets you. You need a matchmaker who is your advocate, who will advocate for you and understands you and is sensitive to your needs and is not afraid to say I don't have anybody right now, because sometimes matchmakers will do that. They will send you a person totally not what you're looking for to prove that he or she has a large database. You need a matchmaker that's not afraid to say, I'm sorry, right now I don't have anybody. I may have somebody in 15 minutes from now, but I don't have anybody now, and I may not have somebody in a year from now. It's okay. And I do that with people, and I do that. And I tell them when I meet somebody for the first time and I do the intake, I tell them, right now, I don't have exactly what you're looking for, and I don't need to prove to you that I have a large database. I may have somebody in 15 minutes. I may not have somebody in 6 months. I may have somebody in a year. But I will not send you somebody that I don't believe is not a match. I will not send you somebody just because you got a beating pulse and they have a beating pulse. Because to do that, you could be matching people that are married, are married. Are married to other people, and that has happened. Oh my gosh, that has happened. Where I've heard from shadchanim where they saw something on a chat and the person was engaged or married. You know how embarrassing that is for the matchmaker, and how it's embarrassing for everyone. How does the single person feel? The single person who had the match sent to them. They're important.
That's why there's no trust anymore. There's no more trust.
And once you don't trust, it's like if somebody has been burnt in the medical system, meaning if a doctor made a mistake on them or a loved one, they stop trusting doctors and they don't want to go to doctors. And when you get sick, you have to go to doctors, and it just becomes a vicious cycle. And if you don't trust, then forget it. You can't live in this world.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Baila.
This has been unbelievable.
I feel like we could literally be sitting here for like hours. It's so nice to talk with you, and your input on dating is very fascinating. And we thank you so much for your time. But if you have any platforms or if you have any social media, how can people get to that?
Okay, so people can email me. Very simple, Baila Sebrow at gmail.com, BAILASEBROW at gmail.com. I'm also on social media, so people can find me on social media. I'm happy to share my phone number, 516-849-5600. 5863. I'm happy to speak to you. And just remember, if you're single, you are important. You are just as important as somebody who's married. It doesn't you are not to be identified by your status. Being single is just a status. It's not who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very important as well. Yes. And thank you to our listeners. We really do appreciate you listening. Follow us on Instagram, Good for Shidduchim, and email us at goodforshidduchim@gmail.com. And until next time, bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
And remember, everything will always be about Shidduchim. Catch you in the next episode.